Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 235 based on novel. So let's start. Deep in the Xiaolin Mountains, on a mountain peak, Xiao Yang's body is standing proudly. Beside him, there is cold and moving cold frost standing quietly. There is no expression on a delicate pretty face, but there is a trace of resentment in the eyes of the black-robed youth around him from time to time. In front of Xiao Yang, Xiao Yixian and others are standing quietly. Dozens of eyes fall on Xiao Yang with awe in their eyes. When they saw the extreme terrible speed shown by Xiao Yang that day, the weight of the black-robed youth in their hearts increased sharply. That kind of speed is really too terrible. It's even much faster than the speed of Beiwang they've seen. It's hard to imagine that he is just a strong man in the middle of Huayuanjing. No wonder he can kill Qin Shu. If he doesn't have strong enough strength, it's really difficult for ordinary people to do it. Later, Xiao Yang entrusted Tianying with more than 30 strong fighters to go into his cave for a temporary rest. With Xiao Yang in front, Tianying was naturally polite to these people. Soon, all the people left. On the original mountain, only 4 people were left, such as Xiao Yang and Lengbing's Huang. The other 2, naturally, are Xiao Yixian and Xie Aya. Since Xie followed Xiao Yixian, although she seldom spoke, her every move followed Xiao Yixian's mind. The 2 people raised their tacit understanding to an extremely terrible level in just a few months. At the moment, Xie naturally feels the strange atmosphere between the little medical fairy and the cold frost. Even if his face is slightly heavy and a pair of colorful beautiful eyes stare at the cold frost, there is a surge of hostility in the depths of his eyes. At the same time, the powerful source gas in his body also flows along with it. Just when Kia was about to attack, Xiao Yang suddenly grabbed Kia's wrist. The latter also immediately regained his mind. His respectful eyes immediately looked at Xiao Yang in front of him, and a respectful color appeared in his beautiful eyes. "Master." Lowering his head, Xie called timidly. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang frowned and nodded, and immediately whispered, "Xie, your cultivation is not weaker than me, but your mind is still shallow. I can't teach you too much. I can only tell you that people live for themselves. Before doing everything, you should think clearly about the purpose of doing it and why you do it. People can't always immerse themselves in the past. Your future still has a long way to go. I don't want you to be depressed like this all the time. Your brother would never want you to be like this." "Brother." Hearing Xiao Yang's words, a flash of light flashed in Kia's beautiful eyes. A familiar figure also emerged in her mind. Although the latter has passed away, in her heart, her brother will always exist and accompany her forever. For a long time, a light mist suddenly surged into Kia's godless eyes. Then he said to Xiao Yang and left by himself. Xiao Yang also looked at Kia's back. Until a moment later, he returned to his mind and looked at the 2 people in front of him. Now Xie's problem has been solved, but the matter between the 2 women is really difficult to deal with. Alas! Thinking of this, Xiao Yang couldn't help laughing bitterly. He saved others' fire, but it was difficult to calm the trouble caused by himself. At this moment, the 2 women stared at each other with 2 pairs of glittering and translucent beautiful eyes. The invisible confrontation made the atmosphere in the air more and more anxious. This was a war without smoke of gunpowder. There was no wind or wave, but it was like a whirlwind, remnant clouds, angry sea and surging waves, which made Xiao Yang sigh bitterly in his heart. Alas! He sighed repeatedly in his heart. Until a long time later, Xiao Yang summoned up his courage and took a step towards the 2 people, blocking their sight. However, just when Xiao Yang thought that this could end the war, the originally calm 2 people seemed to have agreed in advance. They raised their jade hands like ghosts in a moment, in Xiao Yang's frightened eyes. Pa! Both palms roared together, and the crisp and loud slap echoed endlessly on the mountain. Xiao Yang's face suddenly became distorted, and there was an unbelievable look in his wide eyes. The inexplicable move stunned Xiao Yang, but he didn't slow down for a long time. No matter how he thought, the 2 women would attack him with such a strange attitude, and the speed and ruthlessness seemed to have rehearsed countless times earlier. I have to say, The tacit understanding between women is really strange and terrible. After that, the two women were silent again. After looking at each other, they wanted to leave. At this time, among the mountains in the distance, a human figure really came here at a very fast speed. At the same time, the sight of the three people on the mountain was also attracted at the same time. Just a few minutes later, the figure appeared in front of Xiao Yang. The visitor is a middle-aged man. His cultivation was in the middle of the 7-star fight emperor. He was dressed in a yellow robe and engraved with the word valley on his chest. This is also the symbol of Qin Huang's lost valley. This man is the one who lost the valley in the wasteland of Qin dynasty. As soon as he recognized the identity of this person, Leng Bingshuang's pretty face immediately flashed an obliteration. Instead, Xiao Yang stopped Leng Bingshuang, who wanted to kill. The latter saw this. Although his killing intention was not reduced, he did not know why, but he retreated back. For the guy who wanted her body in front of her, although she hated everything in her heart, she still couldn't do it after all. As soon as the killing intention in her heart was mentioned, it dissipated inexplicably. Even in the face of Xiao Yang, the source gas in her body couldn't be controlled independently. As for the little medical fairy on one side, she didn't know the identity of the visitor, so naturally she couldn't have hostility. Moreover, with her current cultivation, even if she was hostile, she couldn't do it. As for the person who came, it seemed that he had a goal long ago. He didn't come at all for the owner of the Shaolin Mountains. On the contrary, he came for the black-robed youth in front of the three people. Standing in the void hundreds of feet away from the three people, the yellow-robed man didn't say any more nonsense, but shot a jade slip at Xiao Yang from a distance. When it was confirmed that the jade slip fell into Xiao Yang's hands, he turned and fled without hesitation. Die. However, at the moment when the yellow-robed man turned around, the cold frost behind Xiao Yang suddenly took a hand and slapped him in the air. With suppressed anger in his heart, he killed the yellow-robed man in an instant. When Xiao Yang saw this scene, he couldn't help swallowing saliva, and his back was cold. On the cliff, seeing the yellow-robed man slapped to death by cold frost, Xiao Yang couldn't help shrinking his neck. Then, when cold frost shot a pair of cold eyes, he quickly picked up the jade slips in his hand. Then, when Xiao Yang injected a trace of energy into it, the information contained in the jade slips appeared in front of Xiao Yang at the moment. What appeared in front of Xiao Yang's eyes was an image, and the figure in the image was Qin Shuo and Yi Luotian, who had just escaped not long ago. Seeing these two people, Xiao Yang and Leng Bingshuang's faces immediately became gloomy. Seeing this, the little medical fairy on one side also took a look of hostility. From this image alone, Xiao Yang can clearly perceive that the injuries of these two people seem to have recovered a lot. I think it should be with the help of a lot of high-level pills. I'm afraid the role of this image is also to cause some psychological pressure on Xiao Yang. Unfortunately, these things have no effect on Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang, it's really unexpected. It's amazing that your has grown to this level in just a few years. In the image, Yi Luotian showed a grimly smiling expression, and his venomous eyes seemed to be really waiting for Xiao Yang. Although these eyes did not contain any substance, they also tightened people's hearts, as if there was an invisible sharp blade in his throat. In this regard, Xiao Yang three people directly ignored this invisible threat. They were not afraid of it at all. Then, Qin Shuo, dressed in a robe in the image, spoke later. Xiao Yang, and Cold Frost, well, you're finally gathered. Wait, 10 days later, it's your time to die. The extremely gloomy words contained endless killing intention, and the eyes were ferocious, as if they had seen the tragic defeat of Xiao Yang and others 10 days later. Gaga, Gaga, Xiao Yang, after 10 days, we will wait for you in Shahepu. If you don't come, we will lead all forces in the western regions to level the Shaolin Mountains. Then we'll see where you hide. At the end of the image, Yi Luotian smiled grimly again, and Xiao Yang and others' faces were also involuntarily swept with a cold killing intention. This guy is completely threatening them with the whole Shaolin Mountains as a bet. Bang! When the image in front of him was over, Xiao Yang immediately pinched the jade slips in his hand and burst them. Then he slowly raised his head and looked at the distant sky. The corners of his mouth raised a radian and said coldly, Yi Luotian, Ghost Hall. Inform me. 10 days later, meet Shahepu. A word fell, and Xiao Yang immediately turned around. However, at the next moment, the smile on his face was suddenly frozen. He saw that the two women behind him were staring at him with cold eyes. The cold eyes made people hair inside. Naturally, no one conveyed the orders in his mouth. Xiao Yang was stunned. His heart was suddenly numb. He opened his mouth, but he couldn't spit out half a word. The whole person was like a piece of wood. Until a long time later, the two women in front of him hummed coldly and turned away. Xiao Yang's hanging heart also fell down. A few hours later, in the cave of Tianying, Xiao Yang and a group of senior Xiao men were sitting in it. At the moment, everyone's faces were dignified. After little Dr. Xian's notice, they all know about the war with Qin Huangmi Valley 10 days later, and what they are most worried about now is the real strength of the other party. As an old force in the western regions, Qin Huangmi Valley was once called the overlord of the western regions, and its inside information should not be underestimated. Yi Luotian closed the 4 main gates, and naturally there are many strong men under his command. Together, the two forces are powerful enough to sweep the whole western regions. According to Tianying's understanding of the two, there are probably more than 50 strong fighting emperors under the command of Qin Huangmi Valley, and the number of semi-strong emperors is even more difficult to estimate. This is incomparable to Xiao men today. However, if it is just this point, after all, there are 4 strong people in the Xiao men side, including the cold and frost, and there are 2 more strong people in the Huiyuan area than in the Qin Huangmi Valley. If that's the case, as long as there are 2 more of them, even if there are 50 strong fighting emperors in Qin Huangmi Valley, they can also be easily suppressed. After all, in front of the strong in Huiyuan territory, the so-called strong fighting emperors are nothing at all. But unfortunately, just when everyone thought that the war would not be a problem, the cold frost with a pretty face suddenly opened his mouth and revealed the fact that there were still 2 strong people in the source environment in Qin Huangmi Valley. As soon as this sentence was uttered, it immediately shocked everyone present. Even Xiao Yang's face suddenly changed. Others didn't know, but he was very clear that Yi Luotian colluded with the Ghost Hall. In the war 10 days later, the people of the Ghost Hall were bound to come forward to denounce him in order to arrest him. At that time, I'm afraid there will be at least 2 strong people at the level of Huayuanjing in the Ghost Hall. Xiao Yang thought that if so, the 4 of them could still fight, but if the other party still has 2 strong people at the level of Huayuanjing, in the case of 4 to 4, if the other party suddenly takes out 2 strong people at the level of Huayuanjing in the war, at the same time, the troops on his side of Xiao men will be affected, and the war situation will become more dangerous. The unfavorable situation will only make them completely lose the possibility of victory. Therefore, now, if you want to defeat Qin Huangmi Valley, Xiao Yang's only way is to find other helpers. However, looking at the whole western region, there are few strong people in Huiyuan territory. Where can he find help? However, just when Xiao Yang felt a little anxious, his eyes inadvertently caught a glimpse of Tianying and others at the moment. To be exact, it should be the scale snake among these people. At the moment of seeing the latter, Xiao Yang's heart suddenly seemed to think of something. The divine color in his eyes lit up, and a pure light flashed quickly from the depths of his eyes. If you remember well, there may not be other strong chemical source and environment in the western regions. Xiao Yang clearly remembers that he once felt the breath of a strong person in Huiyuan environment there. Now he remembers that he was really lucky at the beginning. Then, under the leadership of Xiao Yang, Leng Bingshuang and Tianying came to a natural lake together. The blue sky, calm lakes, and boundless mountains and forests make this area particularly beautiful, especially the light mist floating on the surface of the lake makes it look like a fairyland. When the party came here, the cold frost behind Xiao Yang and the scale snake among the 5 eagles immediately recognized it. This is not only the nest of narwhals and snakes, but also the entrance to the ancient ruins. What are you doing here? I don't think there will be anything under the lake. Leng Bingshuang looked suspiciously at the lake in front of her, full of questions. Under her breath perception, there is nothing under the lake now. Although there are still some signs that Warcraft has survived, it cannot prove that there is anything special here. As for the relic, it was closed a few years ago, and she can't think of it. Brother Xiao, do you want to? It's the scale snake in the back. He once entered the ruins and clearly knows the terrible. If he wants to get help, the guys inside are a very good help. Yes, I want to have a try and see if I can open the ruins again. If I can, I think we should be able to win another strong person in the source environment. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yan grinned. He clearly remembered that the strong breath he felt when he was in the ancient ruins was an existence that he could not compare with at that time. At that time, through the quiet bones, Xiao Yang immediately determined that that guy must be a strong man at the level of chemical origin. Therefore, if he could open the ancient ruins again this time, and successfully get the help of that person, then they will be able to add another strong person at the level of source environment. As soon as he said this, the faces of several people behind him suddenly changed. Even Liu Jin and Fang Tonghui showed an unbelievable look on their faces. Even the little Dr. Fairy and Kia's cheeks showed a look of surprise. On the contrary, it was cold frost. The willow eyebrows frowned and said in a cold voice, "Are you crazy? Usually, the prohibition of ancient relics is special, and outsiders can't open it at all. If you forcibly open it, you will only be hurt by the energy contained in the prohibition. Moreover, even if you can barely open it, how sure are you that you can get in and out freely?" For this sudden cold drink, all the people present looked at the cold frost, and then swept back between Xiao Yang and the two. They were stunned, especially after seeing the smile captured by Xiao Yang's mouth. There was a trace of conjecture in their hearts. Feeling the people's eyes, a crimson color immediately flashed over the cold frost's pretty face. When Tianying and others saw this, a surprised color appeared in their eyes. Immediately, they looked at each other secretly and immediately calmed down. Among the people, only the little Dr. Fairy was indifferent, but the pair of eyes flashing complex colors kept staring at Xiao Yang for a moment. "Do you care about me?" At this time, Xiao Yang's mouth suddenly burst out such a sentence. Suddenly, the invisible storm exploded in the minds of Tianying and others. Several people looked at each other in shock, and then their eyes instantly shifted to the cold frost. The result was as strange as they expected. If someone dared to joke with Lung Bingshuang like this according to her character in the past, I'm afraid it would have been slapped by her. However, today, when Xiao Yang said these words, Lung Bingshuang not only didn't get angry, but turned around with a red face and ignored the former. This scene is really difficult to make them think less. Liu Jin and others looked at Xiao Yang with a smile. Then Xiao Yang stopped joking, turned around and looked at the lake in front of him. To tell the truth, even he didn't have any assurance that he could open the ancient ruins. After all, Rao can only feel the existence of the ruins with his soul power. As for opening it, it is even more unimaginable. However, the more difficult it is to imagine, the more Xiao Yang wants to try it himself. After all, if you don't try anything, you will never know whether you can really do it. Seeing that Xiao Yang was about to make a move, the scale snake in the rear flashed a hesitant color on his face, opened his mouth, but the words at his mouth were swallowed back. At the same time, Xiao Yang's heart moved, and the surging soul power in the center of his eyebrows immediately poured out. The vast soul power swept across the world like a mountain flood and tsunami. The faces of the people behind him also showed a shocked look in an instant. Such a terrible soul power is really unimaginable. Then, under the control of Xiao Yang, the vast soul power condensed into two invisible hands in an instant, tearing the lake in front of him. The lake rolled. Under the lake, a seemingly invisible force began to resist with two invisible hands. From time to time, the collision was called a violent explosion of the rolling lake. Before the lake could fall, it was swept by an invisible energy wave and impacted on the people outside the lake. In this regard, the cold frost before everyone was just a random wave of hands, and those water droplets and invisible waves dissipated. When the two invisible hands touched the invisible energy under the lake more and more fiercely, people could finally see the forbidden outside world. The scarlet energy barrier lies under the lake. From a distance, you can see a huge scarlet energy aperture, which is the entrance of the ancient ruins. Seeing this scene, all the people behind them looked surprised. Before this scene appeared, they didn't feel anything strange here. Before the crowd, the cold frost frowned at the entrance of the slowly emerging ruins. His heart could not help tightening slightly. The source gas in his body also quietly circulated. With the continuous impact of Xiao Yang's soul power, the entrance of the ancient ruins is more and more clearly presented in front of everyone. But even so, despite Xiao Yang's efforts, there is still no sign of opening the entrance, even a little crack has never appeared. Damn it! In his heart, Xiao Yang more madly injected his soul power into his two invisible hands, but for a moment, a cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Until half an hour later, when Xiao Yang poured all his few soul forces into his two soul hands, at the entrance of the unchanged ruins, a scarlet blood arrow suddenly shot from it, passed over the two invisible soul hands and stabbed Xiao Yang hard. At this moment, the cold and frost body suddenly flashed, but in a moment, it had appeared in front of Xiao Yang, intending to resist the blood arrow. The cannibal blood arrow pierced through the void, with a sharp wind-breaking sound like the neighing of yin ghosts. In the blink of an eye, it had appeared a few feet in front of Xiao Yang's body. The next moment, it would pierce Xiao Yang's chest. At this time, in front of Xiao Yang, a figure dressed in a long blue skirt suddenly flashed. Unexpectedly, it was the first to appear in front of Xiao Yang. Facing Xiao Yang, at the same time, a very cold ice mirror appeared behind the cold frost almost at the same time. Hiss. Then, with a low hissing sound, the scarlet blood arrow quietly disappeared in the air in a tremor. Then, when the eyes of the public shot, they were surprised to find that it was not the ice mirror coagulated behind the cold frost that blocked the blood arrow, but a young man in the same black robe. It looks like a scale snake. The one who blocked the blood arrow just now was the scale snake with only 9 stars fighting Emperor. Suddenly, all the people present showed a deep color of surprise. Even when the cold frost came back, they couldn't help showing a color of surprise on a pretty face. Cough. When Xiao Yang raised his head, he saw a large snowy spring before him. The whole man suddenly became stunned. Then, the cold frost that was leaning over to look at the scale snake also found something wrong at the moment of looking back. A delicate pretty face suddenly showed a touch of blush. The delicate body just wanted to move, it was pulled to the side by Xiao Yang. Then, he quickly cleaned up his mood, turned his eyes and looked at the scale snake. Seeing that the latter was so easy, he dissolved the blood arrow. Rao was awed by Xiao Yang's nature, but then he came back to his mind. Recalling that at the beginning, the scale snake swallowed the inheritance of the ancient ruins. Speaking of it, there was also a part of the breath of the original owner of the ancient ruins in his body, which could control it, maybe that's why. On the other hand, Leng Bingshuang was struggling with the jade hand tightly held by Xiao Yang, but after all, she still couldn't escape Xiao Yang's powerful hand. In addition to being helpless, she thought of what Xiao Yang had said in the cave for no reason. When she thought that the people in front of her wanted to conquer her in such a domineering way, Leng Bingshuang was unwilling, but some inexplicable joy. Aware of this, the crimson color on the cold frost's pretty face became more intense. Aware of Xiao Yang's gaze, the scale snake turned back with a smile and glanced at the people behind him. Then he opened his mouth and said with a smile, "Let me try." The scale snake's eyes returned to Xiao Yang. The eyes seemed to be waiting for the latter's consent. Xiao Yang was stunned when he saw this. After a little hesitation, he also nodded, ordered, and retreated with the cold frost on one side. Then, the scale snake turned his head and stared at the lake in front of him. A scarlet color gradually appeared in a pair of black eyes. With the emergence of the light, the lake, which had just returned to calm, stirred again, and circles of water retreated towards both sides. The scarlet relic entrance also appeared in the sight of everyone. This time, without Xiao Yang's previous hard work, it was a leisurely attitude. Under the control of the scale snake, the entrance of the relic was gradually opened in the eyes of the people. Soon, the entrance of the relic completely appeared in front of the people. At the same time, a stream of scarlet blood mist also flew out of it. Seeing the blood mist again, Xiao Yang no longer showed the slightest fear in his eyes. He stepped forward and stood next to the scale snake. They looked at each other and immediately turned back to the people behind them. Then, the two started together and flew away at the entrance of the ruins in front of them. When the two men came near, Xiao Yang bent his fingers, and the light blue flame suddenly rose and flew in front of them, dispersing the blood fog that rushed towards them. Then, their bodies quickly disappeared into the entrance of the ruins. When he came here again, Xiao Yan could not help but breathe a sigh of relief when he looked at him as before. At first, after they competed for the inheritance, the whole stone platform collapsed, but fortunately, the external space where it was located did not seem to be involved by the stone platform. In this way, some worries in Xiao Yang's heart can naturally be resolved. Soon, Xiao Yang appeared in front of a vast forest. This time, Xiao Yang didn't stop at all. He flew straight to the depths of the mountains and forests. With his huge soul power, he soon found where the big guy was. Oh! With a grin, Xiao Yang looked back at the scale snake beside him, and immediately took the latter with him. They started together and flew away towards the depths of the mountain forest at a lightning speed. A quarter of an hour later, the two figures stood on the void, and in front of them was a huge open space. In different directions of the open space, there are 6 huge black stone pillars several feet high, on which mysterious runes are engraved, emitting bursts of fluorescence. The foundations of the stone columns are connected with each other. From a distance, it looks like a regular hexagon, and in the center of the 6 stone columns, there is a stone platform. From the broken half of the black stone columns on the stone platform, there should have been 7 stone columns here, but the middle one was destroyed for some reasons. However, at this time, Xiao Yang's eyes were not above the 6 stone pillars, but under the stone platform in the middle, in the dark cave like the wellhead. With his powerful soul power, he can clearly detect that there is an extremely fierce existence in the cave. Of course, now, this breath can no longer pose any threat to Xiao Yang. Hihi, why, don't you plan to come out and meet your old friends after a long separation, great ape? Xiao Yang grinned. The laughter seemed to contain some magic, so that the guy who just heard the sound in the cave immediately opened a pair of scarlet eyes. Bang! The terrible giant force fiercely collided with the stone platform, which made the surrounding mountains and forests vibrate violently, and the violent roar came from the cave under the stone platform, shocking the heaven and earth. The later stage of Huayuanjing. Come on. Help me destroy these 7 seals. Yes, in the later stage of Huiyuan territory, when Xiao Yang and Cold Frost met before, due to the residual energy of extremely cold spirit in his body, Xiao Yang successfully broke through his cultivation to the later stage of Huiyuan territory. However, in today's Cold Frost, his cultivation is the peak of the later stage of Huiyuan territory, which is only a step away from returning to the source territory. However, when the giant ape in the cave noticed Xiao Yang's breath, it seemed that he suddenly remembered something in his mind. It's you. The human boy who spied on me. The scarlet eyes are full of shock. It's only in the past few years, but the boy in front of us has actually grown to this point, which is shocking. Hehe, it seems that you still remember me. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang smiled faintly, with a little cunning in his smile. How can it be? How can your cultivation be improved so fast? Seeing Xiao Yang admit with a smile, the heart of the great ape was shocked. It was only a few years. How could he think that the original semi-emperor has become a strong man at the level of Huayuanjing? In this regard, Xiao Yang just grinned, and the scale snake on one side also smiled lightly, with a joking look on his face. No more nonsense. I came to you this time to get you out of here. With his arms around his chest, Xiao Yang glanced at the cave entrance below. The latter heard the speech. The shock that had enveloped his heart a moment ago suddenly dissipated, but instead he was filled with excitement and ecstasy. He was sealed here for many years. Now, he finally has the opportunity to go out. Boy. No, you. What you said is true. Would you like to help me unlock the seal and get out of here? Xiao Yang's words made the address of the great ape seem solemn. In the voice of his words, he could clearly hear the uncontrollable excitement. The scarlet animal pupil blocked the exit of the cave, as if he wanted to see Xiao Yang clearly. That's natural, otherwise I wouldn't be here again. Just. At this time, the words in Xiao Yang's mouth were slightly shocked, and the heart of the great ape was also suddenly awe-inspiring. Sure enough, you are willing to take risks to save me. If you have no other purpose, it's really unbelievable. In the twinkling of an eye, the great ape was silent again, and cold laughter came out. Of course, Rao is so. Xiao Yang can still feel the impatient mood in the latter's heart from his words. He has been sealed here for too long. If there is a chance for him to leave, the great apes will never give up easily. Now this opportunity has come to him, how can he really calm down? Hihi, I can save you, but I want you to do something for me. Xiao Yang smiled and said faintly, "What's up? Join my forces." "Impossible. I will never be bound by anyone. Let me join your power and dream." The giant ape sneered coldly and ignored Xiao Yang. When the latter heard the speech, his fine light flashed in the depths of his eyes. He immediately pretended to be helpless and shrugged his shoulders and said, "Well, I won't force you. Since you won't join, we'll treat it as if we've never been here. Bye." "Oh, no, we'll never see you again." When the words fell, Xiao Yang turned around and wanted to leave with the scale snake beside him. The latter turned around and looked at Xiao Yang, but found the smile from the corners of the former's mouth. The scale snake immediately understood, joked and smiled in his heart, and immediately turned around. They flew away from the mountains and forests without hesitation. In situ, the giant ape in the cave was full of hesitation. He didn't believe that Xiao Yang could turn his head and leave so easily when he entered the ancient ruins again. However, when he clearly realized that Xiao Yang's breath was getting farther and farther away from him, and even about to leave the mountain forest, the urgency in his heart finally made him speak. "Wait a minute. You won." The voice of unwilling words spread among the mountains and forests and on the void in the distance. When Xiao Yang heard this voice, they also showed a satisfied smile on their faces. Even if they turned around, they returned to their original place in just a few minutes, and their eyes fell on the cave below again with a joking face. You won. Now you can let me out." The great ape sneered with hatred, and there was a resentment in his voice. "Hihi, how can I say such words? I saved you. You join me. The two sides are willing to be mutually beneficial. It should be a win-win for you and me. How can I say I won?" Xiao Yang opened his mouth with a smile on his face, and the great ape turned his mouth and urged him. Seeing this, Xiao Yang and the scale snake looked at each other. They both grinned. Immediately, Xiao Yang raised the soles of his feet and took a step forward. At the same time, the vast source qi in his body was flowing at the same time. With a backhand grip, the dark ruler suddenly appeared inch by inch. Then, a strong source gas also curled up. Then, the giant ruler waved over his head and waved it hard. 7 feet. 1 foot. 2 feet. 3 feet. 6 feet in succession, the strong force pounded on the 6 black stone pillars. The strong force made the world tremble. Then, in the surprised eyes of the scale snake behind him, the 6 stone pillars broke. When the array is broken, the great ape will be liberated. Roar. The earth-shaking roar spread throughout the mountain forest. At that time, the powerful warcraft of all parties in the mountain forest also issued a burst of earth-shaking roar, which seemed to echo, and seemed to announce their position in the mountain forest. Hey! At this moment, Xiao Yang suddenly frowned when he stepped in the air. He was surprised and doubted in his heart. He looked at the giant ape who burst out of the earth in front of him. After a long time, he asked suspiciously, "Your accomplishments, how can you be the 8-star dude?" According to Xiao Yang's exploration, this guy's real cultivation should be in the source territory, but now, I don't know why, even if he escaped from the seal, his cultivation is only 8-star dude. Such strength is not much help for Xiao Yang. Cough. Hearing the speech, the great ape suddenly coughed twice, and then said, "My original accomplishments are really good in Huiyuan, but at the beginning, the owner of this broken place sealed me 2 times in succession. One is to seal my accomplishments, and the other is to suppress me here. Over the years, although my accomplishments have gradually recovered a little, there is still a long distance from Huiyuan. This video will end here.